so creepy.
Hi guys, this is the current state of my sewing room / study. You could say that I chose this costume based off fabric that I could access relatively easily. I knew that I had this Sherpa fabric because I was going to use it for another project. I still want to use it for that other project, but I'm going to steal a bit for this one. And I also had this fleece left over, which I have made another vest from, but I never ended up posting a video about that. So I think the two will go together very nicely to make this reversible vest. Even though we're going into summer here in Australia, it was really important to me to sew something that Bub could wear day to day and not just once as a costume. This is why I chose to sew a vest and add little accessories rather than doing a more dramatic sheep costume, and I think it worked out really well. First up, you'll need a garment that you can use as a template, something that's similar in size to what you'd like the vest to be. I'm using this other vest that I made, but I'm going to make it a bit shorter in length. So I'll use that garment to cut out front and back pieces. If in doubt, you can always cut larger pieces that allow more room for error, because it's much easier to trim things down than to try and add fabric on later. Your left and right sides should be symmetrical, so once you get to the middle, you can actually fold it over and trace it off. The front and back pieces are almost identical as well, but depending on the fastening you're using, you might want to leave more seam allowance at the center front. I'm using this snap stud tape that I'll be top stitching on, but you can also use a zip or buttons. Whatever you choose, I suggest leaving around 5 centimeters extra at the front so that you can make it work later on. It's also important that if you want the vest to be fully reversible, you'll need to use a fastening that is also reversible, such as snap studs or a reversible zipper. Otherwise, they obviously won't work if you turn the vest inside out. So now we should have one large back piece and 2 front pieces. I thought it would be cute to have a gathered waist detail, so I'm going to finish the vest with elastic, but it's totally up to you if you'd like to do the same or if you would like to leave it with no elastic. I also had to make a few last minute adjustments, so I cut off a little bit more length, and I also forgot to cut a lower front neckline. The front neckline should sit a bit lower than the back, as you can see on mine here. Once you're happy with the shape, we're going to cut out the exact same pieces in your other fabric of choice. I'm using this Sherpa, which has a little bit of stretch to it, so make sure that if you're using a stretchy fabric, the stretch is going around the body, not up and down. Once you have 2 sets of your pieces, we're going to sew them separately. So I'll put my Sherpa fronts and backs right sides together, and then my fleece fronts and backs right sides together. And we're just going to sew the shoulder seams only of both. As I was sewing, I realized that I'd done something wrong, but I couldn't really quite figure out what. And it's only now that I'm editing that I can see where I went wrong. So instead of showing you what I did, I will talk you through what you should do. Duh. So the method you should use is called the burrito method, and I'm going to link a really good video by Seamwork, and they'll talk you through exactly how to attach the 2 vests to become one. Otherwise, I will show you the way that I did it, which is a little easier, but it's not finished as professionally as the burrito method. So remember this step. I actually edited out my mistake, and that was that I sewed both the shoulder seams and the side seams. Then I put the right sides of the vest together and I sewed down the left center front and the right center front. If you're using a zip, you should sandwich the zipper in between these before sewing them down. Now you can turn it out the right way and the vests should be joined. If you did a zip, check that it's attached properly. And at this point, I had to top stitch my snap tape in place. I just pinned it down where I wanted it to be positioned, and I stitched down both sides of the tape. Once that was sewn in, I could flip the vest inside out again and sew all along the neckline. Once that's sewn, it should look nice and neat like this. And then to finish off the hem, we do the same thing, turning the garment inside out and sewing straight along the hem. And while we're here, we're going to add the elastic to the hem. So do as I say here, not as I did, because I did things the wrong way again. So a second line of stitching underneath the first one, that is the width of the elastic that you're using. If your elastic is 1 inch, so another line of stitching a tiny bit wider than 1 inch. Leave a gap in your stitching so that you can actually get the elastic in, then sew a couple of stitches on each side to keep it in place. I'm really sorry I don't have the proper footage to go along with these instructions. I kind of had to make things up as I went along because I made a few mistakes myself. Basically, at this point, I was wondering whether I actually wanted to put elastic in the waist because I thought it was really cute how the shape of the vest swung out like this. But in the end, I decided to do it, and I think it worked out really well. If you had any cute little tags to put into your garment, now's the time to do that because we won't be able to get into the inside of the garment anymore. I had this cute selection of tags from Molly and also from DIY Daisy. I went with this really cute Keep Playing one. I put it at the top of the back part of the vest. I thought that even if my bub wore it out this way, I thought the label was cute enough to be showing on the outside. And then I had to do some thinking because I stuffed up the burrito method, so I wasn't able to finish off the armholes how I wanted to. Instead, I cut some strips of bias tape. You can purchase bias tape that's ready-made, and then you can just sew that in all around the armhole so it's finished nicely. Otherwise, you can cut your own bias tape. I recommend Googling or YouTubing a video on how to make your own bias tape. Otherwise, I sewed around my armholes with the intention of putting bias tape over the top, but once it was finished, I actually preferred it just like that. I found that the tape that I was going to use, which is this Sherpa fabric, was too thick and bulky, and honestly, I was running out of time. So I just sewed it, and it looked really neat in the end. My word of warning is that you can only do this unfinished armhole if your fabric is not going to fray. If your fabric's going to fray, then you should definitely do a bias tape around it. Once you've finished off the armholes, that's pretty much it for the vest. It's time to move on to the ears and the tail if you're making a sheep costume. Obviously, if you're not making a sheep costume, you don't have to make these to go with the vest, but I personally think that it's pretty cute. So if you posted a picture of you in a vest with ears and a tail, I will give you 10 points to Gryffindor. Okay, so honestly, I was winging it at this point. I drew up a shape of ears. I actually Googled sheep's ears and it was really difficult. So this is the shape that I went with. And I basically used the Sherpa fabric on one side, and then I put the right side together with black fabric that I had lying around and left one side open so that I could turn it out the right way. Once I turned it out, I figured I could fold the ear over when I was sewing it onto the base. There are lots of different options for bases, but I chose to do basically a large scrunchie that was going to go around Bub's head. I had to use her beanie to gauge the size because the only time I get to sew is when I don't have my child. And so when she's not around, I can't try things on her. So I basically used her beanie, and I'll link you to a scrunchie tutorial that I made a while ago. In a nutshell, you cut 2 long strips of fabric. You sew down the long edges and then you turn it out the right way. Then you get some elastic and you basically thread that through the long strips of fabric. So then you should start to see a scrunchie taking place, and then you just sew it together so that you can't see the elastic anymore. And then if you're adding little ears like I am, then you just sew them straight on top. Thank you. When the ears are done, all that's left is the little tail. So it's up to you how long you want to make the tail. I kind of freestyled it again, as I usually do. Sew together 2 strips of fabric with the right sides facing in together, and then you basically turn it out the right way and voila, a tail. It's up to you if you would like to sew it onto the garment, or in my case, I wanted it to be detachable, so I just used a safety pin to attach it to the little vest. I have no idea where these stains came from. Probably from my child's food, but anyway, look at the ears. They turned out so cute. They were a little bit big and my child hated having them on. She ripped them off at every opportunity, but at least the vest she doesn't mind. I just paired it with black leggings that she already had, and I found a black top, and then with the ears and the tail it really completed the look, but I definitely achieved the idea that the vest could be worn day to day and not just as a costume. Especially being reversible, I feel like you get 2 looks out of the one garment, and with little growing children, I think the more wear you can get out of something, the better. Well, that's it for this video. I thought that I would share it even though it was a bit all over the place, so I do apologize if some parts were hard to follow. Leave a comment if you get stuck and I'll do my best to help you out. Again, thanks so much for watching. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and also subscribe for more DIY videos. See you next time. Bye!